Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello everyone. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Namira Fasya Khailifa from 3B1 morning class NPM 2002050075. In this video, I will tell you the story about the father of Indonesian education, Ki Hadjar Dewantara. Biography of Ki Hadjar Dewantara. Suwardi Suryaningrat was born in Yogyakarta on May 2, 1889. The date will later be remembered and designated as a National Education Day by the Indonesian government. He comes from the royal family of Pura Pakualam, Yogyakarta. Suwardi is the grandson of the third Sri Papuan. His father's name is KPH Suryaningrat and his mother's name Raden Ayu Sandiah. Ki Hadjar Dewantara has an older brother named Suryo Pranoto. Suryo Pranoto was Budi Utomo's first secretary. Later Suwardi received religious education from various Islamic boarding schools under the care of Kiai Haji Abdurrahman, a Kiai from Karasan. He got his formal education from the Europees Legier Schools, or ELS, which uses Dutch as its medium of instructions. Ki Hadjar Dewantara and his life struggle. Ki Hadjar Dewantara started his career as a journalist fighting for the fate of the indigenous nation with a sharp pen, namely through writing that was very critical of the Dutch colonial. Ki Hadjar Dewantara is a person who pays attention to the people around him. He never yells but has a firm nature. He said that the aim of education should be to develop not only the mind of intellectualism but also mind or character. He is also a great politician. Ki Hadjar Dewantara and the political struggle for independence. He founded a party called Indonesian Party with Dr. Cipto Mangunkusumo and Dr. Dawes Dekker or Dr. Setiabudi on December 25, 1912. They were known as the Triumvirative. This party was the first political party to move towards an independent Indonesia. They carried out propaganda in order to ignite the spirit of the people against the colonialists. One of the propaganda tools they used is writing. Towards the 100th anniversary of Dutch independence, Ki Hadjar Dewantara criticized the Dutch with an article entitled Als ik een Nederlander was, If I Was a Dutchman, which was published in the Express magazine on July 19, 1913. Ki Hadjar Dewantara continued to launch repeated propaganda attacks. This resulted in Ki Hadjar Dewantara and Dr. Cipto Mangunkusumo being arrested and given a cell sentence. Not long after, Dawes Dekker returned from the Netherlands to write a lawsuit made on August 5, 1913 in the Daily Day Express. Dawes Dekker was arrested and had to join them both. Ki Hadjar Dewantara and Indonesian political upheaval. The three of them refused to be exiled in the country and begged to be exiled to the Netherlands. Their request was fulfilled. The presence of the three Indonesian Party figures in the Dutch exile had an influence on the Indonesian student organization there, namely Indonesian Vereniging, which changed its name to the Indonesian Association in 1924. Suwardi eventually became an important person in this organization. During this time of exile, Suwardi was not only active in the organization but also pioneered his dream of advancing the natives by studying education and obtaining a prestigious education certificate, which would later be used as his foothold in establishing the National Educational Institution Taman Siswa. After 6 years of living in exile in the Netherlands, Suwardi returned to Indonesia in September 1919. Ki Hadjar Dewantara's journalistic skills have led him to become the editor-in-chief of the Indonesian Dutch student organization Indis Potra. For Ki Hadjar Dewantara, magazines or newspapers are the most important media that are the basis for achieving the ideals of independence. In 1924, the Potra Indis magazine changed its name to Indonesia Bugar. The name change shows the increasingly radical struggle of Indonesian nationalists in the Netherlands. Ki Hadjar Dewantara struggles to uphold the sovereignty of his country was not only through the press and politics, but also in the field of education. That's the call suggested by his wife, by Ki Hadjar. Later, Ki Hadjar studied at a teaching profession school. Through that school, he began to understand a lot about the ins and outs of the world of education, so that he received a teacher certificate from the school. After returning from Den Haag, Netherlands in 1919 with a high certificate, the teacher remained active in politics and was again imprisoned in the Pekalongan detention house, Central Java. At the same time, Ki Hadjar gave birth to a third daughter, Ki Hadjar Dewantara, and the vision of national education. The colonial education system did tend to be discriminatory and only oriented to colonial interests. This is what makes the importance of national education that focus on the interests of the people. This prompts movement figures to form the Tuesday Kliwon Association Forum, which is centralized in Yogyakarta. The main vision that is carried out is illustrated in its motto, Memayu Hayuning Sarira, Umbrella Hayuning Nation, Umbrella Hayuning Manusa, which means protecting personal safety, national safety, and human safety. The association forum is based on nationalism. Sometime later, Ki Hadjar Dewantara founded a student park college on July 3, 1922, as a form of actualization of national education, an education that focused more on the interests of the indigenous people. The educational process applies the Among system, an education system that emphasizes two noble goals. First, independence is a substantial matter that must be achieved in order to live independently and sovereignly. Second, the nature of nature must be a condition for sustaining life as a means to advance the nation itself. The colonial political ploy to stop student parks was to issue an ordinance for illegal schools in 1932. One of the items in the ordinance was that the colonial authorities had the authority to intervene in all activities run by private schools that could hinder the movement of the student parks. That means the colonial party has the right to stop and dissolve private schools. The historical journey of the student park in educating the indigenous people shows that sincerity and selfless dedication are needed to educate the nation's generation. This is the substantive meaning of education, namely humanizing humans and making them independent. For Ki Hadjar, education means the growth of body and soul and the development of inner and outer. Ki Hadjar also said that education is a guide in the life of the growth of children. Ki Hadjar argues that education carried out with conviction in aim at human safety and happiness. Ki Hadjar Dewantara beat the council in the cultural struggle. Education is a cultural endeavor based on civilization, namely advancing life in order to increase the degree of humanity. By paying attention to these statements, it is very clear that the vision, mission, and goals of Ki Hadjar Dewantara's education are that education is a means of struggle to raise the dignity, universality, and progress of mankind so that they can stand firmly on a par with other nations that have progressed by staying grounded in its identity as a nation that has a civilization and culture that is different from other nations. The idea of character education can be designed on the figure of Ki Hadjar. History records that he has pioneered character education with the concept of a three-center of education, which mentions the family environment, school environment, and community environment. One of the important struggles of Ki Hadjar Dewantara that colors the page of the history of the Indonesian nation was the reconstruction of its culture. Culture can also be used as a bulwark in defending and fighting for common goals, safety, happiness, and glory. Ki Hadjar Dewantara and Indonesian Fine Arts. Ki Hadjar Dewantara is one of the most important national heroes in the realm of Indonesian art. Ki Hadjar Dewantara is a person who is open to any art, including modern paintings. He feels art is as important to everyone as eating and clothing. In education, it made him absorb art. One of them is as a creative instrument in the national struggle movement, because he considers painting as part of the image of an independent nation. Ki Hajar Dewantara's intensive struggle with the aesthetic world, specifically Indonesian fine arts, formally occurred when he co-led the People's Power Center, or PUTRA, in Jakarta in 1942. In this institution, he and Soekarno, Muhammad Hatta, and Mas Mansur changed the cultural and social direction into a strong national entity. Artworks are directed as part of national identity. Ki Hajar Dewantara's role as a leader in education and culture eventually contributed to the decoration of artistic thinking within the organization, which was very useful for achieving independence. According to senior painter Sri Hadi Sudarsono, Ki Hajar Dewantara is a very generous and noble-hearted character in the eyes of painters. Taman Siswa, or student parks, was the brainchild of Ki Hajar Dewantara and his activists in Yogyakarta, who were very brave and brilliant. In this case, Ki Hajar Dewantara applies art as the main basis in education. From 1946 to 1950, the student park, with soldiers and painters, worked hand in hand in the struggle to maintain Yogyakarta as part of Indonesia. His character can be an example and make an important contribution in the field of creativity. Within seconds of the succession of government into the hands of self-government, Ki Hajar Dewantara attended the proclamation of Indonesian independence. And the next day, Saturday, August 18, 1945, Ki Hajar Dewantara was appointed as a new member of the Preparatory Committee for Indonesian Independence, or PPKI. In the seconds of the struggle for the proclamation of Indonesian independence, Ki Hajar Dewantara was appointed the first Indonesian Minister of Education in the composition of the first cabinet of the Republic of Indonesia, led by President Soekarno and his deputy Muhammad Hatta. At that time, his name was RI's Minister of Teaching. He held this position in a relatively short period of 3 months, for the period August 17, 1945 to November 14, 1945. Seeing this invaluable dedication made Ki Hajar Dewantara a national hero and the father of national education. On May 2nd, which is the day of his birth, has been celebrated as a National Education Day since 1959. Ki Hajar Dewantara founded a student park college in 1922, where Taman Siswa education has the characteristics of Pancadharma, namely the nature of nature, independence, culture, nationality, and humanity based on Pancasila. Educational culture efforts, according to Ki Hajar Dewantara, can be pursued with an attitude or song known as the Trikon concept, namely continuity, convergence, and concentricity. The teachings handed down by Ki Hajar Dewantara are Tri Rahayu, Trilogy of Leadership, and Tri Pantang. Ki Hajar Dewantara also gave birth to his famous teachings, namely Tut Uri Handayani, or in front of giving encouragement, Ing Madia Mangun Karsa, or in the middle of creating opportunities for initiative, Ing Ngarsa Sung Tulada, or in front of giving an example. Therefore, the name Ki Hajar Dewantara itself has the meaning as a teacher who teaches goodness, nobility, virtue, educator, or the Hadjar, namely someone who has advantage in the fields of religion and faith as well as social problems. He died on April 26, 1959 in Yogyakarta and was buried there. That is all that I can tell you about the story of the father of Indonesian education, Ki Hajar Dewantara. Thank you so much for watching my video. I hope you guys like it. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.